Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, hello, welcome. Welcome, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Tomorrow's Friday. We will be broadcasting live Friday Road Show from none other than Scramblers. That's where we do the show on Fridays. And the doors do open at 6 a.m. If you want to come out and have breakfast or lunch for breakfast, feel free to do so. Also, we are going to have happy hour. Yes, that's right. And new happy hour specials at Retro Metro 4 to 6. And I'm looking at it kicking off my birthday week. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to be, see, I have the list of guest hosts for next week on my desk.
I think I can do it by memory. I believe
I can remember. I just don't know the order.
I think
other than Darren's on Monday.
Yes, Darren is on Monday.
Chapel.
Yes. Tuesday is James Clary. Wednesday is Bishop Davidson. Thursday is Mike Moon, and Friday is Kyle Wyatt. I think.
Okay.
That sounds about right.
All right. Well, you're the producer.
I got it wrote down.
So I will defer to your memory on this one. So happy hour. That'll be sort of my last working event before I take some vacation time doing I don't even know what. It's one of them there vacations. So
those are the best kind.
Sometimes they are. Sometimes they absolutely are. There's two types of vacationers generally. There's those that have to have a full-blown itinerary and get as much packed in as possible. I tend to find afterwards, I'm like, I don't even feel like I took a vacation. I had some nice experiences, but I'm kind of the sit back and relax kind of guy. That's what I like to do. And so then there's that vacation where it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to do a little here, a little there, just enjoy life. So I will miss you all greatly, and I'm sure something earth-shattering will probably happen while I'm gone, because that tends to happen. Last time Trump got shot. Last time I took a week off. So we'll see what this time around. Let's hope that doesn't repeat itself. Have our fingers crossed on that one. Speaking of, Secret Service has suspended 6 agents that were tasked with protecting Trump during the assassination attempt that was just about a year ago. Exactly what day? What day is today?
Today
The 10th. Okay, so I'm sure this will be marked by some news outlets a bit more than others, as we were just 3 days away, July 13th, the day that there was that attempt on Trump's life in which he was shot. And so it's taken about a year, but sometimes better late than never. 6 Secret Service agents that were assigned the duty of protecting him that day have been were suspended without pay or benefits following the attempt to take his life. Matt Quinn, the agency's deputy director, told CBS News on Wednesday that they weren't going to fire their way out of this, but did say they are laser focused on fixing the root cause of the problem. Quinn telling the outlet the agent's penalty ranged from 10 to 42 days of unpaid leave, adding that they were placed in restricted roles and less responsibility once they returned to the job. He said the disciplinary action were in accordance with federally mandated process. So what is new here, apparently, is the fact that we're learning about this. It appears, according to the agency's deputy director, the specific disciplinary action, that was a federally mandated process, so it doesn't sound as if this is some sort of decision that was made outside of what was required in order to reflect what they felt was necessary in order to demonstrate reflect the level of unacceptability of the actions on that particular day by those Secret Service agents. Corey Camperatore, he was the 50-year-old firefighter and father and husband who, of course, was killed while trying to protect his family during that particular event. And there are still, obviously, this is one of those areas where it's very difficult for people to understand why there are no more answers about this. How it is that this individual that was said to, have these different phones and, just how all of that happened. And it's just increasingly, for a lot of people, redundant. And that is something happening that should be unacceptable, and then we're going to get right on this and make sure we figure out what's going on here, and then we just don't ever hear anything again. Seems pretty wild and pretty crazy. You think even back to, though it was an assassination that was successful, the Kennedy assassination, and the depth that they go into either, quote, covering it up, or, you got the Warren Commission, and there's all this, like, this massive focus, this demand that we figure out exactly who is responsible and what happened, or, again, covering up what happened. And it's just like, well, nothing, not a whole lot to see here, which, to me, in and of itself, sends a message that really doesn't take a lot to shoot the president. At least, and I don't know if this is, a good thing or a bad thing, but if we were to learn that this was some highly sophisticated effort, and this individual was sort of the Lee Harvey Oswald of our time, a pawn that was used, some sort of useful idiot that was looking to make his place in the world as some sort of lonely young man who felt that he didn't fit in, and he was targeted by Iranians or by, some sort of highly intelligent agency that coordinated this to a great degree, and so that there was this real sophisticated machinery behind it. I don't know, at least you could, I don't know, this is a weird thing to say, but it would give you this sense of somewhat of confidence that, okay, well, boy, we came close to having a president, or a presidential candidate in that case, assassinated, but it was such a rare circumstance because of the high level of intelligence behind it, and the odds of something like that occurring together are not that great. But when the impression we're given is, oh yeah, it's just some guy that one day decided to, ride his bike with a backpack and a gun over to a rally, and that's all? That's all? Those are probably a dime a dozen. I mean, especially if you look at all of the Democrat activists, and we've got a listing just in the past week of Democrat activists that have, threatened to kill Trump, tried to kill Trump, or ICE agents, and I don't know, just kind of a lack of confidence gives me. All right, we got weather coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk at text line 447-KSGF. If you want to text in, feel free to do so. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be sunny and hot with a high near 92. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Friday, once again sunny and hot with a high near 92. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll see a 60% chance of showers throughout the day with a high near 88.
Happy 49th anniversary to the Hansons. Yeah, they are kicking things off, listening to the show and having coffee this morning.
That sounds lovely.
Yes, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Yes, you should come to our happy hour, Retro Metro.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be great to see the two of you.
This Friday.
I don't think. Let's see. I think it was. I actually sat next to them at the Barry Manilow concert.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I did indeed. I don't. Have I seen them since? It seems like.
I think maybe a lunch bunch.
Did they do a lunch bunch
I think
once?
so.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so it'd be great to see you all at Retro Metro. Well, I'll just gush love and congratulations upon you. 49 years. That's a long time to be married to anyone. Very long time. So good on you. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Yesterday, Kevin O'Connor, as expected, there was a video that was shared of former White House physician Kevin O'Connor pleading the Fifth Amendment. Now, of course, the Fifth, and this is interesting, the Fifth Amendment is the right against self-incrimination. And you've got two different arguments here against complying with answering any questions. One is claiming doctor-patient privilege. We've talked in the past about how I don't know. This is kind of uncharted territory. I mean, the physician and the president, that relationship is a bit different, given that while, of course, we do have this doctor-patient privilege situation in this country, the president generally allows or asks the doctor, requests the doctor reveal medical information to the public at large. And Kevin O'Connor has done just that. Issued memos, issued letters saying that Joe Biden's just fine. And while I can see an argument that it doesn't completely dissolve all doctor-patient confidentiality. So if you are talking about health issues A, but there are health issues B that have not been revealed to the public, then I can understand saying, well, that's an area that I have not been given or have spoken about publicly, given permission to speak about publicly and subsequently done so. And so I can't do that now. That seems to me to be a fair argument. The problem, however, is if there are specific argument, like if there's a specific area of health, like cognitive thought, and hey, here you said he was perfectly fine. Let's talk about that. I don't know that you can then say, no, I don't want to now because of doctor-patient privilege, because you've already talked about it. And because there are questions about whether you were honest or not, your honesty, your potential lying about what was actually going on, that's not really covered, I wouldn't think. But then the Fifth Amendment component to this is something that could very well be related to the fact that there are allegations and questions about whether he was receiving outside financial payment through some of these different money funneling schemes that the Biden family had going on. There have been numerous reports regarding, I think, Biden's brother specifically, and there being some sort of business deal that is going on there. And given what we have learned about the Biden family and the way all this money flows around and for what reasons it flows around, you can understand, okay, so here's a guy that apparently, according to reports, was also receiving money for reasons we don't know, just like everybody else in the Biden family is just flowing around. And he also was releasing reports claiming Joe Biden was perfectly fine health-wise, which, of course, we now know wasn't true. So this could be the reason for pleading the Fifth, which you're allowed to do. Now, of course, anyone during Trump world that would plead the Fifth, we were told very specifically that people who have nothing to hide don't plead the Fifth. However, when that gets suggested in this situation, that's such a horrible thing to suggest, we're told. Many people have noted that the key to this is give him immunity. Give him immunity. If the focus of the investigation isn't about him, if he's not the central character, but others are part of the central character cast, and he is someone that they're not looking to punish in any way, but just getting information is his significance in all of this, then give him immunity. Then he can't plead the Fifth, because there's nothing for which to plead the Fifth, because you cannot self-incriminate yourself if you have immunity. Well, no, it's redundant. Self-incriminate yourself. You cannot self-incriminate if you've been given immunity. Coming up, very special special time of the year in Missouri where you have been given the privilege, and we'll go through how to do this, how easy it is. You have been given the privilege to apply for a gas tax refund. This is apparently what passes for a party that presents itself as being about lower taxes, is that the Republican Party in Missouri raises taxes on you, but allows you to apply to get exempt out of it. And, of course, it's just extremely easy to do, so we'll run over that as it's that time of the year that they have been so generous as to allow you to, with a few very simple steps, evade having to pay those tax increases that were signed into law by tax hike Mike Parson, 5 years ago? So I think this is the last year, finally, we'll have a gas tax increase at the pump, and we'll have a little relief until the next time around. Save your receipts. Missourians can once again apply for gas tax refunds. If you filled up your gas tanks in Missouri any time from July of last year to June of this year and saved your receipts, you may be eligible for a state gas tax refund. Now, just a little history on this, people who don't remember. Under the leadership, the Republican leadership, there was a push to get taxpayers to increase taxes at the pump, but they wanted to raise your taxes so high it was a violation of the Missouri State Constitution, and to do it on their own. So they had to get a vote of the people. It's what's called the Hancock Amendment. And they went to the people, and the people said, no, we don't think so. Well, golly gee whiz, that was the wrong answer. So they undertook another effort. because they just, again, they could have done it on their own, but they wanted them jacked up so high. Doing it on their own was a violation of the Constitution. You can't, without the vote of the people, jack up taxes beyond a certain rate. So they went back to the people again. And Governor Parson and then Lieutenant Governor Kehoe went around the state, right here in our very area. I know because I would talk to local elected officials in a number of the communities, and what they would do is they're like, hey, what sort of projects, like street, road projects, are really, really needed in your area? And they're like, well, we got this intersection, we got this going on, that going on. They're like, you know what? If there was a gas tax increase, we'd be able to take care of that for you. You should let all of your citizens know that. So they spent a great deal of time and effort going around lobbying local, mayors and council members to, based off the promises of all these little projects, to go tell their citizens, hey, you need to vote yes for this gas tax increase. And so it went again to the people, and the people are like, no, I don't think so. Kind of getting tired of the answer for everything is we need to give you more money. Well, golly gee whiz, that was the wrong answer again. So somebody came up with a clever idea. Because continuing to ask the people of Missouri what to do wasn't working. We weren't giving the right answer. It's almost like Democrats voting for Joe Biden. That wasn't the right answer at some point, so we got to swap him out, put someone else in. So what are we going to do? All right, well, we're going to do this on our own. We have the state legislature pass it, governors sign it. But wait, we have a problem. That pesky Constitution. Pesky. Someone's like, I know what we can do. Because the amount we want to raise the taxes is too high, it'd be a violation of the Constitution. What if we vote to raise it, instead of once really big, 5 times just small enough to where we can kind of loophole in and get around that pesky Constitution? And they're like, oh, that's a very clever idea. Now, of course, there were a few conservative, small government Republicans that were against it. But the problem with the Republican Party in Missouri is that they aren't the ones who run the show. And so they voted for it, and everyone was so happy and wonderful. Finally, they figured out a way to jack up taxes on the average Missourian. But they had this answer for people who were like, what is going on here? We told you. And by the way, the people who are always in the editorials that are always writing about the people spoke, the people spoke, the people spoke. We hear a lot of that now when it comes to the state legislature looking to right some of the damage that people are doing in terms of voting when it comes to businesses and paid time off and so forth. And we hear all of this about, well, they clearly don't respect democracy. The people voted on this. How can they ignore the people and instead just do the opposite? None of those people were concerned about ignoring the will of the people when it came to the gas tax. I don't think there was a single editorial from any of the left-wing papers, be it the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Kansas City Star, Springfield News Leader. These people who wring their hands over Republicans ignoring the will of the people suddenly were silent when it came to taking more of your money away. Finally, they found common ground. But they had to tell us something. So they were saying, oh, but wait, it's actually voluntary, see? It's voluntary. Because you can get a refund. Now, there's two different approaches that one can implement a voluntary tax. One is that you say, oh, yeah, you don't need to pay this unless you want to. If you want to volunteer and go ahead and pay it, do so. Or you can say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and take it from you, and we'll get back with you later on how it is you can get that back if you want to. And it was the latter approach that Missouri decided to take. We're going to get a traffic update as some of you are driving around right now, burning up some of that gas that you paid increased taxes for. And then let you know how simple it is to get that refund, how easy they have made it for you. By the way, under the penalty of perjury, if you do it wrong, if you mess up, they can tag you for perjury. They put that nice little sweet nugget in there because they care so much for you as a taxpayer, of course.
Fields Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today it's going to be sunny and hot with a high near 92. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 92. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll see a 60% chance of showers throughout the day with a high near 88.
Right, so this is the time of the year that people are able to apply for a gas tax refund in Missouri. Now, if you aren't familiar with the background of all this, you can listen to the podcast. I'm not going to go over it again. If you've listened to this show ever since this issue of the gas tax, ever since the Republican establishment in Missouri is pushing this, this is just one of those issues. Really, really. I think till the day I die, this is one that I will not let go of in terms of frustration. There are a few of those things, and I know for the vast majority of people don't even think about this. I get it. By the way, it's part of the reason that government loves the gas tax is you don't really see it. If you go to the grocery store, if you go to the drive-through, anywhere else that you're purchasing products, you get that receipt and it's ringing up, or you're doing self-checkout. It's like this, and then there's the total because it adds taxes. And so it's just, you really get a sense of it. But the way that things are calculated at the pump, it's so hidden, it's so out of sight, out of mind, that it's a real easy go-to for people that want more of your money. And I fully recognize that when it comes to, if you've got a hierarchy of where people are in terms of this issue and frustration of this issue, uh, anger, even dare I say, that the vast majority of people are in the whatever column. We're not even thinking about it. And there's like a few at the very top. I'm up there at the top. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. We've done our refund every year. If there's anything else the state could have done to make the process even more difficult, I'm not sure what it would be. Another noting, rub salt into the tax wound by using the tax to fund J-turns at selected intersections, of course. People hate J-turns more than roundabouts,
I
I think.
also hate J-turns.
So why do you... We're going to get to the tax refund thing here, how to get that refund, how easy it is in a second. But why... I'm not pro or against. I understand why some people don't like roundabouts. I'm fine with them. I think that all in all, in my experience, a lot of them are beneficial. There may be, I do also feel as if sometimes it's just a fun little, oh, well, let's put a roundabout there. Let's put one over there. Sometimes like, is it really necessary here? But listen, I'm not an expert when it comes to transportation, but I know people complain and hate those J curves. Is that J turns?
J turns.
J turns. But I've never. Why is that?
Well, there's a variety of different reasons. For me, I hate them, especially in the winter time, because I feel like they don't get cleaned up as well as they should. So there you are going like a pretty fast speed on the highway.
Okay, I can
and then
see that.
You got to merge over to the left and pray that they've got them cleared off enough, because then you got to completely come to a stop and then you got to start again. And that's really, really scary.
Because the whole point, correct me if I'm wrong, is if you're on the highway and you are, let's say you're going southbound and then you are going to cross over into northbound, it's to give you enough room to be able to do that wide turn, right?
Yes.
Is that okay? That's what I thought. Is there any other purpose? I mean, I think that's it, isn't it? So you can turn around.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, people do, and I don't know if they hate him for. I mean, feel free to text in for the reasons you hate him, and I'm not saying you're wrong for hate. I know them, I know of them, obviously, but I know people hate them, but I've never really asked why. And so anyway, so for you, it's when there's inclement weather and they.
I think that they can be kind of difficult to maneuver for larger vehicles, and then of course then you got to get in the hammer lane, as I always call it, and then there's always somebody on
the hammer lane.
The fast lane.
Oh, why is it called the hammer lane?
That's what my father-in-law calls it.
Oh, okay.
So the hammer lane.
Never heard that before.
The hammer lane. So you got to get in the hammer lane, and there's always somebody on your tail, and then you got to slow down. There's a lot of reasons.
Well, I printed off, and there's Ozark's first story on this that has a link to the 4923-H form. And the form reads as follows. To claim a refund for the increased portion of the motor fuel tax paid on fuel used on for on-road purposes, the taxpayer must file a refund claim. Refund claims must be postmarked on or after July 1st, but no later than September 30th, following the fiscal year for which the refund is claimed. The worksheet of Missouri motor fuel tax paid by vehicle must accompany a Form 4923H. You must provide a separate worksheet detailing the fuel purchase for each vehicle by vehicle identification number known as the VIN. Motor fuel purchased for and consumed by a motor vehicle with a gross weight of 26,000 pounds or less is eligible. Form instructions. VIN number. Enter the VIN for each vehicle to be claimed for a refund. Select box if vehicle does not exceed 26,000 pounds. Check the box to verify the vehicle claimed for refund has a gross rate of 26,000 pounds or less. The information can be found on the driver's side door jamb information plate. Total gasoline gallons. Enter the total gasoline gallons for all worksheet of Missouri motor fuel tax paid by vehicle forms completed for each and every VIN. A vehicle cannot have both gasoline gallons and diesel gallons. Total diesel gallons. Enter the total clear and or dyed diesel gallons from all worksheet of Missouri motor fuel tax paid for or paid by vehicle forms completed with each VIN. A vehicle cannot have both gasoline gallons and diesel gallons. Motor fuel Missouri motor fuel tax increase paid. Enter the amount of gallons purchased times X, the increased portion of the motor fuel tax rate. Add lines 1 through 10 for each column. If you have more than 10 vehicles for which you are filing a claim, electronic filing through the department's portal is encouraged to reduce processing time. If you choose to file the claim via paper, complete an additional form, 4923H, and attach the supporting document to that form. Refund claim, enter the amount from line 11. A separate worksheet will need to be submitted for each vehicle claimed. If more than one worksheet is needed for each vehicle, enter the total from all worksheets on page 1 for the applicable VIN. Select only one type per vehicle of fuel. If submitting a claim for tax paid on dyed diesel, the claimant must be a state, city, county, or local government or school district. Date motor fuel purchased. Enter the date the fuel was purchased. Fuel must be purchased between July 1st and June 30th for the reporting period. Seller name. Enter the name of the gas station or company that the fuel was purchased from. And this is for each and every time. Seller address. Enter the full address of the seller of the gasoline. This includes the street address, the city, the state, and the zip code. Gallons purchased. Enter the exact gallons purchased, including 3 decimals to the right, as listed on each invoice or receipt. Remember to sign and date the form. Now, what if you mess up? In the bill summary, this was SB 262, that would be signed by the governor. To claim an exemption and refund, a person shall present written verification that the claim is made under penalty of perjury and stating the amount of fuel tax paid in the applicable fiscal year for each vehicle for which the exemption and refund is claimed. The claim shall not be transferred or assigned and shall be filed on or after July 1st, but no later than September 30th, following the fiscal year for which the exemption and refund is claimed. The claim may be filed electronically and shall be supported by certain documentation as provided in the Act. Every person shall maintain and keep records for 3 years to substantiate all claims for exemption and refund of the motor fuel tax as specified in the Act. So if you do this, make sure that you keep your documentation, because 2.5 years from now, 2 years, 10 months from now, the government could come a knocking, and if they find anything that they feel doesn't really add up, you can be punished under the penalty of perjury. So that's just how easy they have made it for this, quote, voluntary gas tax in Missouri. It is so great to live in a state run by smaller government, smaller tax party, known as the Republican Party. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Hammer lane. The hammer lane is the fast lane.
Hey, there we go.
Where you can, quote, put the hammer down and drive fast. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna put that hammer down.
That's what my father-in-law always says. Get in the hammer lane.
How many of us get gas at different gas stations? You have a right. You have to write all of them down in this form. Yes, under penalty of perjury. So They're very serious about it. Somebody noted this whole process is done to de-incentivize. Yeah, but some of you are just stubborn enough to do it, and that's fantastic. Every time I enter a J intersection, if there is traffic in the vicinity, I slow down because vehicles coming onto the main highway may be cutting across into the hammer lane, only to slow down in anticipation of entering the J turn. Is that a little bit of what you were talking about during the commercial break as well?
Yeah, I gave you like 3 other reasons
Yeah.
why I hated it off air.
I don't have an issue submitting the forms for the gas tax refund, but half of the gas stations I go to do not give out receipts at the pump, and it is a hassle to go into the store to get them. Also, some of the ink only lasts a year before it fades away, so how am I supposed to keep it for 3 years? Well, yeah, especially under the penalty of perjury. I keep liking to throw that in. You know, I am a big believer, because of just information I've been provided by people in the industry, that purchasing fuel from gas stations that are their own like oil producers, like Conoco, Phillips 66, and everything, and I utilize those primarily, and so I have an app that I think there's a Shell app, and then I have one that's Conoco Phillips. And if you have the app, you generally get like up to 10 cents off a gallon automatically. I like it because you pull up, you open the app, and it says, you want to pay at the pump on the app? And I hit yes. It's like, what's the pump number? Oh, it's 6. And then it's calculating, lowering your fuel price, and then, and then you fill up. But the nice thing about that is it does keep a history in the app of your receipts. But, again, you've got to, for the ease of that, utilize one of either a Conoco or a Phillips every single time. But yeah, if you're somebody that just hits whatever gas station is closest to you, it's going to be much, much more difficult. Someone noted you could take a phone and make an album for gas receipts in your phone. Yeah, one could do that as well. All of this, again, just citizens of Missouri grappling with ways to try to keep every little penny the government allows us to keep. That's fantastic. Ozarks elder law. End-of-life decisions are not fun to make. Nobody wants to make these decisions. They are not fun. They can be heartbreaking. And they're even worse if it's too late to plan. You can get taken advantage of because you're not in your best state of mind. It can take what otherwise is a pretty harmonious family and tear it apart. Kids fight, families fight. Maybe some people get away with things that they shouldn't. Ozarks elder law can help you do the hard things now so it's not even harder later. It's never fun. It's not going to be fun to do it ahead of time. But it is so much easier to do it ahead of time than when it is too late. Ozarks elder law can help you do that. 10 area locations, fantastic folks. And when they do a consultation with you, that is free. They will tell you, based off the determination as to what it is you need, here's what the cost will be to get it done. So you know up front. No nickel and diming you. OzarksElderLaw.com. You can also find them at KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements. Yeah, I tell you quite often about all of the different deals that. Oops, I just hit the microphone with my hand. That are going on right now, Pinnacle Honda, and especially you talk about the gas tax issue. They got the free gas for the summer, purchase of a new vehicle, the details they can give you when you stop by and visit with them. But I did want to read a review, and I don't do this as often as I should. I went in with my family for a Honda Civic. Justin H. was my sales rep. I would recommend asking for his help. I'm so grateful for the Pinnacle team, especially Justin H., Brittany, and Zach G. The professionalism was unmatched. Justin took the time to explain the mechanics of the car. The team worked with my family for an exchange rate and had multiple financing options available. The options were versatile and reasonable. The contracts were explained concisely, and no staff rushed the decision. On behalf of myself and my family, I want to recommend working with Pinnacle Honda. Thank you for your time and help, Pinnacle Honda. And that is what you get with the Pinnacle family at all of their Pinnacle locations, of course. But then, that real focus that we do on that new Honda location and that brand new facility that they had the grand opening for just a couple of months ago. And it is on South Campbell. Tomorrow's Food Truck Friday. Great day to stop by and see what incredible deals they have and also what incredible food truck they will have available for you as well. Pinnacle Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. So there's this new book that's coming out regarding the 2024 election. And, of course, with it comes all sorts of fun drips of information. This is done so it gets talked about, so people get interested and buy the book. And I must say, I have found much of it to be quite enjoyable. And there was the Jake Tapper book that had all sorts of fun behind-the-scenes stuff. And now this latest that is focusing to a great deal on the Kamala Harris campaign and just what Democrats did wrong. And we all remember that one of the real bad moments for Kamala Harris, not that there were a great, I don't know that if you were to say what was the best moment in the Kamala Harris campaign that you could find any. I mean, frankly, I'm talking about supporters of Kamala Harris. But there were a lot that were really bad. And one of them that was just inconceivable was when she went on The View and she was asked, like, what's the difference between her and Biden? She's like, I can't really think of anything. I mean, the whole reason that she replaced Biden was because she wasn't Biden. This is a no-brainer. No, we're pretty much the same. It's kind of fun. So you can't think of, any one thing. No. Apparently, her people backstage were just so dumbfounded. One, because of the stupidity of the question, but according to the book, she had been told the answer to give. She had been prepped. And the answer was, hey, I'm looking to move forward. It was, a BS answer, but it didn't. It wasn't an answer that said to the American people, I'm just exactly the same as the guy that you don't want to be president again. And so, according to the book, during the break, her people went out and asked, I think it was Whoopi Goldberg specifically, hey, do you think you could go ahead and ask her that question again? She'd been asked twice, given 2 shots at it. Now, they didn't do it. And I'm guessing they didn't do it because it would just have been so painfully obvious at that point that it would have been even worse, probably. And I don't know how she could have talked herself out of it, but that's how bad it was at, after 2 times and failing miserably at it, that they went at, they're like, can she have a third try at it? This is a woman that we were told was who was it? Remember there was some member of Congress that said she was, I think it was Adam Schiff, said she was the most prepared person that has ever run for president or the most capable person that's ever run for president in the history of the country. This is how absurd they are. In the new book, it reads, backstage on the View set in Manhattan, Robert Flaherty, deputy campaign manager, put his head in his hands and swore. During the next commercial break, this was after she screwed up the question and the answer, Stephanie Cutter went to co-hosts Whoopi Goldberg and Anna Navarra to ask them to try the question again. But Harris did not get a second chance. After the interview, Harris knew she messed up and asked how big the problem was. An advisor said her answer on the talk show was, quote, the defining error of the campaign. Harris didn't give the answer she was prepared with. Her aides, which according to the authors, praised Biden and emphasized that she did not want to look back and critique the administration, which that would have been her best case scenario. And that's what I would have advised her to do. Be like, hey, listen, we're about going forward, and this isn't about nitpicking what Biden has done. This isn't about picking apart the previous administration. This is about the positive things we're going to do moving forward. And The View would have left it at that. And this is what is just crazy about how bad Kamala Harris was as a candidate. It wasn't just the cackle. It wasn't just the personality aspect of it. I mean, here prepped with such an easy, and she gave instead the absolute worst possible answer, and then afterwards says to her team, hey, how bad was that? We've got news coming up in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. We got a happy hour coming up tomorrow. We'll kick the day off at Scramblers, the morning off, doing the Friday morning road show. Come by, have yourself some breakfast, have some lunch if you want to do that. Feel free as we broadcast live. And then some new happy hour specials at Retro Metro. You can follow on social media or visit their Facebook page and see what some of those happy hour specials are. They have a new menu as well. Haven't seen it yet, but generally when they do a menu, I call it a refreshening. I think it's the perfect amount of change and alteration, but keeping a lot of the basics and favorites and keeps things fresh there. And that, along with the happy hour specials that they unveiled as well. It should be a good happy hour. That's 4 to 6 tomorrow. We just hang out and I'm going to be kicking off my week-long vacation. So I'd love for you to all come and help me do just that. CNN has this story that's just really weird because it contradicts so much. So much about what we've been told is Donald Trump. And that is the revelation that this was audio that was captured at an event. It was a fundraising event back when Trump was meeting with donors and looking to run for a second term. And he was talking about a number of different things. And one of them is, dealing with Russia and how he deals with Russia, and that he had, told Putin, if you invade Ukraine, which he didn't during his first term, of course, I'll bomb the blank out of Moscow. I'll have no choice. And he said that Putin kind of scoffed at it, and he reminded him, I was the guy that put a stop to your Keystone pipe, the pipeline. The pipeline that they had spent a great deal of time and infrastructure, building infrastructure and money so that they could start selling energy to Europe, something that Trump was very vocal during his first term about being a really bad idea. In fact, the left jumped all over him. How dare you embarrass our allies that way? And Trump was explaining to them, this is before, of course, this was during Trump's first term. So this was after the invasion had begun under the Obama administration. Then it stopped, took the Crimean Peninsula. Trump gets in there, tells them, according to this story, if you go any further with this thing, I'll have no choice but to bomb Moscow. Don't want to do it, but you just can't go invading countries. And he used as credibility the fact that he did what nobody thought would actually happen. He put an end to that pipeline being built, which was desperately needed by Moscow. And it made a lot of our allies unhappy, particularly Germany, because, one, again, he called them out for going down this pathway of becoming reliant on energy from Russia, and how that could be real problematic if ever there was any sort of conflict with Russia. But they wanted it because it was a promise of cheaper energy. Trump said no, put an end to it. Now, Biden, when he was running for president, said he would continue that policy, but I think after 2 weeks in the White House reversed it. And the White House's explanation, by way of Jen Psaki, who was at the time press secretary, was, well, they were almost done with it anyway. So it was a massive gift to Putin. But this is a real it must be difficult if you are an anti-Trump leftist to figure out what to believe here, because you could believe that he's just making the story up. But the left also loves to claim that Trump is insane and he's bombastic and that, Trump's going to start World War III. So if you believe that narrative from the left, then, yeah, Trump would have said this, because that's the crazy, maniacal, insane 25th Amendment Donald Trump that we're always hearing about from the left is going to just start World War III, going to start nuclear war. But, of course, that conflicts with their narrative that Donald Trump also is a puppet of Putin and loves Vladimir Putin and secretly is conspiring with Putin or being controlled by Putin. So I'm curious how anti-Trump people on the left, how they decide what's the truth here. Is the truth that Donald Trump is a maniacal, has us on the verge of World War III guy that they have told us about? Or is that not true, and he actually is a puppet of Putin? Because you can't have both of them in this situation. It's got to be one or the other. Given what we know about Trump and how he has dealt with other countries, and this isn't the sort of rhetoric that is unusual, particularly during the first term, when, of course, the left was up in arms, and Kim Jong-un talked about, well, I have, rockets, and Trump's like, we have a lot more than you. Go ahead and try it, see what happens. And then started calling him Little Rocket Man. And the left went apoplectic. You're going to start World War III. You can't talk to people like that, especially man. You're poking the bear, poking the bear, poking the bear, they kept saying. Took out Soleimani. Of course, the nuclear sites in Iran. So it falls in line when it came to dealing with the Taliban, telling them from this point on, this is during his first term, I know where your family lives. I know where you are. You one from this point forward. American, soldier is even harmed by you all. Hell will be unleashed upon you. So the idea that Trump would tell Putin, if on my watch you invade Ukraine, we're going to, bomb the blank out of Moscow. That would be in line with how he has dealt with other problematic leaders in the country. Now, of course, the problem was Biden got in there, and then Putin went ahead and did it, and you can't unring that bell, so the landscape is now completely different. That being said, Trump has opened the door for the Senate to move forward with a massive sanction bill that would be far beyond anything that the Biden administration ever did. So again, Trump demonstrating that in terms of actual real life action, the things that he does are a greater detriment to Putin than anything that Biden ever did. Just the News reporting with Trump increasingly airing his frustration with his Russian counterpart over stalled peace negotiations and continued attacks against Ukraine, building momentum in the Senate to move forward with a tough sanctions bill against the Russian Federation. Till this week, Senate Majority Leader John Thune had remained quiet about the fate of the bipartisan sanction bill proposed by Lindsey Graham and co-sponsored by 84 of the colleagues. The bill would be the toughest package against Russia yet since the beginning of the war. Thune said on Tuesday he would like to see Graham's bill become law, saying it would send a very strong message to Putin and also show the kind of leadership from us that the Europeans are looking for. Thune added, however, that he will only move the bill forward with complete coordination with the House of Representatives and the White House, saying we want to make sure we want to move it, that we're coordinating it with the White House. It's a very bipartisan issue here in the Senate, and I'm hoping that we'll get the other entities in place where there is an opportunity for us to get this done. And Trump is increasingly signaling that, yes, this is something we're going to do. So this would yet again be another move that is even much more damaging to Putin than anything the Biden administration did. So as Trump consistently demonstrates, he's the worst Nazi in the world, given his affection for the Jewish people of Israel and the United States, constantly doing what he can to protect them on college campuses or over in Israel. He's the worst racist in the world, as he has been crafting peace deals with African countries. By the way, we have audio coming up in a bit of a number of leaders of African countries in the White House talking about how he should get the Nobel Peace Prize. And he's also the worst pro-Putin puppet in the world, because he's doing more harm and putting more pressure on Putin than the Biden administration. Just facts. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be sunny and hot with a high near 92. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Friday, sunny and hot once again with a high near 92. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll see a 60% chance of showers throughout the day with a high near 88.
Sarah Myers.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Summer is heating up fast, and the hottest day of the year is just right around the corner. If your system is struggling, or maybe it's overdue for a checkup, now is the time to call Russell and his team over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. They handle everything from your routine AC tune-ups to repairs and even full system upgrades for both homes and businesses. And if your unit is outdated, they can help you upgrade to something that's a little more efficient that can save you money on your energy bills down the road. So make sure that you get ahead of the heat and schedule your services today. Now you can find all of the contact information for Russell and his team under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
When they put your system in, did you get the that like air sanitizing thing with that
No,
lighting?
I didn't, but that's going to be my next.
I've got to do that. I don't know. I swear, things always pop up. Like, oh, gotta have this pop. Gotta take care
Right.
of this. It's just like constantly.
There is one of our salespeople that swears by it.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely good. It's like a light disinfectant
yeah.
sort of thing that keeps the air sanitized, and they've gotten more reasonably priced as time's gone on and technology's advanced. And yeah, I didn't know if that was something you had done. Or
Nope, it is on the list. Make sure you call Russell.
not. Oh, I am.
You better.
I am. Here's an interesting little jobs report situation. Unemployment since President Trump took office. And this is from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Foreign-born individuals, so non-Americans. 543,000 jobs lost. And I think we can probably figure out why that is. Because of the immigration policies of the Trump administration. So that makes sense, right? In fact, locally there was a big to-do made about a Cuban restaurant closing down because it's a very weird situation. They claim that they had to close down because their employees all had to go back to their home countries because of the immigration policies. So that it would make sense that since he took office, 543,000 jobs lost in that category. Native-born Americans, 2 million gained. What we have been privy to thus far is the recognition that this long-held cliche that these are all jobs Americans won't do apparently wasn't true. And this is something that the pro-illegal immigration crowd has long stood on. This has just become a mantra that has not really had any pushback, and largely because we never had a president in a meaningful way in modern history enforce our immigration laws in a manner that would actually result in a lot of these jobs occupied by illegal immigrants suddenly becoming open jobs. And of course, what we were told was going to happen is all of these there's going to be crops that rot in the fields, that all these industries were going to be shutting down because no one would, as an American-born person, fill those jobs. A few weeks ago, there was a story, and I think it was NBC, and good on them for writing the story, about it was a plant in, it was Nebraska, somewhere in the Midwest, and how because of the immigration enforcement of the Trump administration, virtually all of their employees just up and vanished. They weren't in the country legally. And there was an interview of the owner of the facility, and he talked about how difficult this was, and they didn't know what they were going to do. And this was a story that was presented as a demonstration of we were going to see the collapse of our economy. We were going to see the collapse of these different industries because these jobs would go vacant because we've been told who's going to do these jobs, who will do these jobs. Well, the follow-up story that would be done noted that the day after that, the office was filled with people applying for those jobs. More people than there were jobs available. Now, that's one situation. Is that going to replicate itself in every particular situation? And I'm sure some industries are going to be different. Some regions of the world or the country, rather, are going to be different. But it was this little spark of, well, now wait a minute here. That's not what we were told was going to happen. The conventional wisdom was that place was going to shut down. And it was, of course, going to have a ripple effect on the town because all of those employees that weren't in this country legally and that ended up leaving, some of the paychecks, of course, they would be sending back home. But some of that money they would use to buy food and go to restaurants and go bowling. And so these are industries that would rely on them. And so you were going to have this ripple effect of all these different industries closing down or being harmed significantly. But instead, people were rushing to fill those jobs. Now, sadly, I think a lot of people on the left were disappointed by that. because it ran counter to their doom and gloom. And this is how, as Americans across the political spectrum, we should see a situation like that and go, oh, wow, that's actually a great thing. Because one, that particular industry isn't going to go under because of lack of employees. And two, here are Americans that either did not have a job that now will have a job, or they had a job that wasn't to their liking, or maybe that they didn't make as much money, and here was an opportunity for them to move up and improve their quality of life. That should be good, right? We should all, people on the right, Trump supporters, should be pleased because that's great for America, that is great for Americans, that is great for the economy, and of course they were right at the same time. People on the left, although they were wrong, they should be glad that they were wrong. They should be glad that it's good for the economy, and glad that it is good for that particular industry, and glad that it was good for the people who are now going to occupy those jobs. But they're not. Now, on a macro level, and while there may be a number of different reasons that this is occurring, but you see that with the Trump presidency, about 500,000 foreign-born individuals losing jobs or jobs becoming vacant that were occupied by foreign-born individuals, while 2 million plus for native-born Americans. You know what else you don't see? You don't see footage on a nightly basis of factories shut down because of immigration enforcement. You do not see fields and fields and acres and acres and acres of food that is just sitting there rotting because there's no one to harvest it. And honestly, I assumed that we probably would see some of that. Because when you do start enforcing immigration laws, and you do have a number of industries that rely heavily on illegal immigration, there are going to be some impacts and consequences, naturally, when you begin enforcing those immigration laws. So I've been a little surprised that there hasn't been this nightly news and all these different stories. Oh, look at all this food that's going to waste. Oh, and then you couple that with all the hungry people, and these people are going hungry now because Trump's immigration policies and so forth. That stuff we don't see reel after reel after reel of that. To the great disappointment of people on the left, which again is such a sad thing. Instead of being pleased that the doom and gloom did not turn out, most people, if you think something bad's going to happen, you think you're going to lose your job and then you don't. Oh my gosh, what a relief. Or you think you're going to get diagnosed with some sort of disease and you find out the test is negative, you're relieved. But when it comes to the country and people on the left who are expecting the worst and then they find out actually not only did the worst not happen, but good things happen, they're not happy about it. They're not relieved. Which tells you they don't really want a better country or a healthy country. Because when they find out that that's the result of what is occurring here instead of what they thought, they're disappointed. And they look for something new that they can worry about. That's an emotional defect. Some other good economic news coming up here in moments. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk at text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Were you a big fan? Did you ever have the snack wraps from McDonald's?
Yes.
They are, according to the information that I have received, which is in
Ooh.
news stories, they're supposed to hit the menu again today. I
Oh,
think nationwide. So if I've never had one, but my wife and the girl child, they always really liked them, and they went away in 2016. But I think they like sort of teased them back a little bit. But there are a couple news stories that say that they are supposed to be available for lunch starting today again nationwide.
this is the best news
Oh, is
that
it?
I've heard so far today.
All right, and I think there's going to be ranch and what's the other? There's one other, like maybe buffalo or something like that. Those, there you go. I'm glad I could deliver that great news for you.
I love it.
New Council of Economic Advisors reports finds tariffs are not causing inflation. This is a new report for the CEA, and they found that the prices of imported goods have actually fallen this year and have dipped faster than overall good prices since February. So, in terms of pricing, things that are being imported goods overall have actually dipped, not a whole lot, but just a bit. But how different that is than the Great Depression and economic collapse that we would be facing because of Donald Trump's insane, crazy, diabolical, and authoritarian tariff wars that he created. In my life, there has never been an individual in a decision-making position with authority that has so often been right over everybody else, so consistently. With the loudest screamers in the world saying, this is what's going to happen, these horrible things are going to happen, and Trump's like, no, they won't, here's what's going to happen. Never. So often, time after time after time. No wonder people on the left hate this guy. I mean, can you imagine if there's somebody that works in your office that you just don't like? You don't like them. And then to add on top of it, they're always right about everything. Like, it's just, every single day, and they're constantly successful. Virtually everything they set out to do, they end up succeeding despite the fact that everyone says there's no way that's going to work. I mean, you would just loathe that person if you had some sort of, emotional issue in particular. And so you can see if Trump was a constant failure, I genuinely believe people on the left wouldn't hate him as much. They'd probably kind of enjoy the ride because, one, they love misery anyhow, but they would constantly be able to say, I told you so. See? They'd love it. Every day they'd turn on, they'd be like, ha ha, look at this. Look, tariffs have destroyed the economy. Look, all of this this immigration reform stuff, it's collapsed our economy. Look at all these, just thing after thing. But no, they don't get that. Instead, win. Another win. Another win. Another win. Over and over and over again. How frustrating that must be. Springfield's Talk 1041 traffic update now. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today it'll be sunny and hot with a high near 92. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Friday, once again, sunny and hot with a high near 92. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll see a 60% chance of showers throughout the day with a high near 88.
If you're on social media, odds are you have a friend or an acquaintance that is a realtor, and oftentimes that means postings of new homes or homes that are going to go on the market soon or open houses. What I like about Emily Johnson of House Theory Realty is that it's much more than that. And this is a recent posting I thought was interesting. And she said this always shocks people. When selling a home in Missouri, sellers are not required to disclose murders, suicides, or even hauntings. You'd be surprised how many people are worried about ghosts. But you do have to disclose 4 federally required items, including if your home has lead-based paint, if your home was built before 78, if there are any radioactive materials that you're aware of, if your home was built over a landfill, and if the home has been a methamphetamine site any time in the past. If you're not sure about any of these, definitely a good topic to bring up with your realtor. When in doubt, disclose, disclose, disclose. So even if you already have someone who, maybe you got a cousin or an in-law that's trying to get their feet wet, they just got their license, and so I don't recommend doing that sort of business with family, but if you want to, that's fine. Still, follow Emily Johnson, because it's that sort of information that perhaps the newbie in the realtor community or somebody that maybe just isn't as really into it as Emily Johnson is, that they may not even know some of these certain things, or to check or to remind you of. And so it's just very beneficial, the information she provides for you. But as always, I recommend utilizing her anyhow for buying or selling homes. That's Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. All right, so it was... Donald Trump has been nominated numerous times for a Nobel Peace Prize during his first administration, now during the second administration. And among those, Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, of course, he has written a letter nominating Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize because of everything that Trump has done in the Middle East. Just also within the last month or so, he completely stopped the escalation of military action between Pakistan and India. These are 2 nuclear powers that were escalating quite quickly with military action against one another. And in fact, the leader of Pakistan had said Donald Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize because he stopped what could have been a nuclear war between our 2 countries. Recently, Rwanda and the Congo, Republic of Congo, getting peace agreements developed between those 2 countries. 30 years of slaughter between the 2. He was meeting with a number of other African leaders in the White House, and he's once again demonstrating he's a very, very bad white supremacist. Where most white supremacists wouldn't even meet with a black person. Donald Trump, and by the way, most presidents would not take the time to meet with the leader of an African country other than maybe some sort of symbolic situation. Trump is doing it in order to make meaningful change in Africa that benefits the people of Africa, most of which are black. Very weird behavior for a white supremacist. I was talking earlier about how Trump just succeeds at everything. This is one of the areas, admittedly, that he fails greatly at, and that is being a white racist. He was asked by a reporter from Africa. Well, and she was actually asking, this was a question directed to him, but then also a number of the different presidents of these African countries, leaders of these African countries, about the recommendation and suggestion that Donald Trump get nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, because a lot of people in Africa are rallying around this, that because of the meaningful change that he is making in that region of the world, that he should be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And so the different leaders around the table were all asked to weigh in on this. And some of these individuals speak English, some there's an English translator. And I just thought it'd be nice. If you haven't heard this audio, probably not going to lead the nightly news. Be kind of nice to hear it. This is the president of Guinea-Bissau.
On soutient cette dynamique.
We are in favor of this dynamic for peace. We are very committed on peace. I am the first head of state who went to Russia and who went to Ukraine both since the start of the war. I held the presidency of ECOWAS, and I went to see Mr. Putin. We spoke for 4 hours, and then I went to Ukraine. I spent 12 hours on a train to speak to President Zelensky. But now the weight of President Trump is something else altogether. We are with you. We are behind you to see what we can do to help bring peace back. No one wins when there's war. So you have our support so that we can bring peace back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, the second leader, this is a Central African country, Gabon, and this is the president of that country.
A Nobel Peace Prize, while I don't see any problem with it, I think that President Trump deserves it for all the efforts that he's worked on. And he brought peace back in the SEAC region. That is my region, the region where DRC and Rwanda signed a deal. And so he is now bringing peace back into a region where that was never possible. So I believe that he does deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. That is my opinion on this.
And then the president of African country, Liberia.
Mr. President, I believe that we have to continue to support America's in the strength to be able to bring about peace in the world. America is a melting point and also a country that we all look forward to. And I want to encourage you, because without peace, we can't have a world to live in. And we stand with you on that.
Right.
One of the other African presidents in attendance, the president of Mauritania. Translator again.
Forgive me for saying this, but unfortunately, I don't really understand. I don't know how things work when it comes to Nobel Prizes, but I can guarantee you that Mauritania would never be opposed to President Trump receiving a Nobel Peace Prize, because he's already working very hard in favor of peace throughout the world, with no distinction, no regard to what continent it's on, and he's working on areas where there are tensions everywhere, and he's committed towards peace, and our world needs more peace. Thank you.
And then finally, again, this was, I believe it was yesterday, a Trump meeting with a number of presidents of African countries and an African journalist noting the people of Africa increasingly talking about the need for Trump to be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize because of the historic and meaningful peace that he has been responsible for creating in that region of the world. And finally, the president of Senegal.
The jury will decide. It's not a matter of voting amongst our countries, but what is for sure is that the results and the work has been done in such a short amount of time show that you would be a good recipient. And I'm sure that the jury sees that, and the rest of the world sees it as well and understands it. When the time comes, I think everyone will see that it is a deserved prize. congratulations on what you've done so far. If we took a poll, I think you would be very far ahead in those polls.
You know, I think that human beings do themselves a tremendous disservice just as an individual, but also in the context of hope and desire for world peace. In hating Trump so much, they refuse to see what it is that he's doing. There's never been any figure in modern history that has been so proactively involved in creating peace amongst nations, some of which have been fighting for decades, some centuries, when you look at the Middle East. This is real life stuff. This is not symbolic stuff. And we've talked about this in the past, the difference between Trump crafting these agreements versus peace agreements that have been Republican and Democrat and across the world crafted in the past is agreements in the past have been like, hey, you guys be good, you guys be good. We both agree to do it. We both agree to stop doing this and stop doing this. But what Trump does is he builds in incentives to where abiding by the agreement benefits them. See, the normal agreements, the benefit is that they stop fighting. That's the benefit. Like, we want peace. And so that's what this agreement does, because you quit doing these things, you quit doing these things, and if you agree to stop doing these things, then that means peace, and that's what makes it a peace agreement. But Trump recognizes you have to give people incentive, because if people that have been fighting one another for decades or for centuries were motivated by just peace itself, then they wouldn't be fighting. So he sees you have to, you got to like, what do they have that could benefit them? And then what do they have that could benefit them? And then you tie that into it. Like, okay, part of this agreement, by the way, is you're going to get some of this over here, what they have, and you're going to get some of this that they have over there. And it's stuff that each side has some of, and I'm being overly simplistic. But the point here, and this is how the Abraham Accords came together, this is how it is that he has crafted these meaningful agreements between some of these countries, Republic of Congo, Rwanda, is because it has that built-in mechanism of they win, they benefit by abiding by it. And that is where he is different. And on one hand, it is such a brilliant approach, but on the other hand, it's so simple at the same time. It's like, how does everyone not understand this? It just makes sense. And he's able to do it over and over and over again. It is such a simple formula. Doesn't mean it's always going to work. And you are obviously going to have internal forces that have benefited over time. You look at Congo and Rwanda in particular, and that there are internal forces that have benefited from there being fighting. And so there will be attempts to sabotage it. And it just gives you real insight into some people, leaders, voters, citizens across this world who virtue signal about wanting peace. And here's a guy that's actually doing it, and they just don't care. They'd rather him be dead. They'd rather go back to countries fighting, having symbolic agreements that don't mean anything, that certainly don't stop the fighting. It doesn't stop the bloodshed. You know, this inability thus far, the lack of any sort of ceasefire agreement between Ukraine and Russia, is partially because Trump is not willing to have some sort of symbolic peace agreement that either side could just break away from without, suffering any sort of consequences in any given moment. He could easily do that. Just easily come up with something, both sides sign it, but, if the ceasefire goes away or if the end of the, and they start fighting again, oh, well, we tried. That's usually how these things work. I mean, look how many different peace deals between Israel and the Palestinians. Meaningless. Trump could do that. He knows he could do it. But he doesn't believe in doing things that are meaningless. And it's just, I think, monumentally disappointing that we are seeing ways that these things can be done that will save lives and that will make this world, and is making this world, a more peaceful place. And for those who virtue signal the most off these very causes, could not care less. In fact, they wish it weren't happening because Donald Trump is the one responsible for it. And that shows for most of those people, it isn't about peace. It's about themselves. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, I mismanaged the clock, as they say, the commercial breaks. We do have Author of the Week coming up in the next hour, sponsored by ABC Books. Obviously, Christy Fulnicki's not here this hour today. She won't be here next week also because I will be on vacation. So we'll have a number of totally awesome guests filling in. So just FYI on that. But because I did go just a little bit long and mismanage things, we are going to go ahead and take another quick break with some awesome local sponsors in there as well. So a little bit of a bonus. was playing audio earlier of 5 different presidents of African countries all talking about Trump deserving the Nobel Peace Prize because of the meaningful peace he has created in these between these different African countries, and how he's really bad at being a white supremacist for doing this. Text coming in from the app to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, and it notes that those on the left who constantly call Trump a white supremacist will turn this all around and say the only reason he's trying to make things better in Africa is so that all the black people will go back there and stay. They won't be able to give him credit for anything. I mean, you that is such a funny approach, but at the same time, I swear to you, the left is so they're such lunatics. I could see them trying to figure out a way to make Trump look bad, and that could be one of the ways that they do it. Happy hour coming up tomorrow at Retro Metro. Got a new happy hour or new happy hour specials. Number of different items. You can find Retro Metro on Facebook. I'm sure Instagram, others as well. Facebook is where I see a lot of these postings. As they do a good job keeping you updated on menu items and goings-ons, as they were, but also over the last couple days noting what some of those new happy hour deals are. So if you like deals, you like happy hour deals, we got happy hour coming up tomorrow at Retro Metro. Love for you to join us. We do have Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. I did want to share a story, as if there hasn't been enough disaster in Texas. There are a lot of citizens down there quite upset as Chelsea Clinton has announced the Clinton Global Initiative volunteers are on the ground. And the reason that many of the people are quite upset is because there are still some who remember what happened in Haiti with the Clinton Global Initiative. And that was, by all appearances, a successful attempt to take advantage of a disaster in order for allies to line their own pockets. And this is a memory that I suspect, it's Texas. They probably think people in Texas, they don't follow what goes on in the world, certainly when it comes to brown people, so they probably don't remember what happened in Haiti. So we're going to bring the Clinton Global Initiative down to Texas. Now, things had gotten so bad that there were protests. There were Haitian activists that held protests outside of Bill Clinton's Harlem office in November of 2014 and Hillary Clinton's office in March of 2015, demanding to know what had been done with the $6 billion that had been collected by the Global Initiative for Haitian earthquake reconstruction. And there were family members and, friends of Bill, FOBs, that were involved in all of this. And there was all of this money and all of these projects were supposed to occur, and these projects did not occur. There was never any answer as to where the money went because, hey, it's Haiti after all. That's a crap hole. Who's going to know any difference? The audacity of these people given that scandal. I mean, this apple does not fall far from the tree, and for Chelsea Clinton to pick up this mantle and announce the Clinton Global Initiative, we're coming on down to Texas. Jeez, these people. News.
In the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 92. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Friday, sunny and hot with a high near 92. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll see a 60% chance of showers throughout the day with a high near 88.
And I'm Nick Reed. It's Thursday, which of course means it's Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Our author, Robert George, is the McCormick Professor of Jurisprudence and Director of the James Madison Program at Princeton University, and a leading scholar in law, ethics, and political philosophy. The book is Seeking Truth and Speaking Truth, Law and Morality in Our Cultural Moment. And I'd like to just start off. What's a driving force behind this particular book for you?
Well, the driving force, Nick, is my belief that young people have come to identify truth with feeling, with emotion, rather than with rationality. And this has all sorts of baleful effects for our society. First of all, if we go searching for truth in our viscera, in our emotions, we're not going to find it. And secondly, it has led to a kind of authoritarianism, a desire to shut down people's freedom of speech when people disagree with them. Desire to cancel people, ruin their careers, even ruin their lives when they disagree. So I want to do what I try to do with my own children and with my students here at Princeton, and that is try to form them to be determined truth seekers and courageous truth speakers, to get the focus off of our feelings and of our emotions and how we feel, and to get back to the idea that we should try to think our way, freely think our way to our conclusions.
Well, I've got to ask, you reference your students at Princeton, and there's a stereotype about the vast majority of universities across this country and how they really seem to cater towards that very approach that so many young people seem to now have leading them, and that is emotion. I mean, are you a fish out of water there? What is that environment like? And has the university culture contributed to this age of feeling?
I very much regret to say, Nick, that the university culture has contributed. Universities have earned the unfortunate position they now find themselves in so many cases. And they've earned it by failing in their fundamental mission. And that fundamental mission is to try to get at the truth of things. That's why faculty are paid to do their research, write their books and articles, trying to get at the truth of things. In our teaching, we're meant to help our young people to think more deeply and more clearly, and to think for themselves, to really be determined truth seekers and courageous truth speakers. And universities so often have allowed classes to degenerate into indoctrination sessions. Instead of learning history or philosophy or sociology, sometimes I think it's become a kind of catechism class for progressive or woke dogmas. One of the fundamental problems is simply the lack of viewpoint diversity on the faculties of most universities. If I do feel a little bit like a fish out of water, it might have something to do with the fact that I dissent from a lot of political and moral opinions and religious ideas that the vast majority of my colleagues here at Princeton and more broadly in the academic world hold. If we're to do our jobs rightly, if we're to be first-class scholars and first-class teachers, then we're going to need to interact more with people who look at the world differently than we do, have different perspectives, raise different issues, challenge us, criticize us, get us thinking, get us re-examining our opinions.
I noticed some time ago, and I imagine this is all part of it, I would hear people start to talk about, well, my truth. And to me, that just seemed like such a contradiction, because truth is a constant. It's not something that, in my opinion anyhow, is alterable based off of one's wants and desires. It's like saying my gravity. I mean, gravity is gravity. Truth is truth. Is this part of this cultural sort of evolution, and is it deliberate, or is it something that naturally evolved, you think, with this mindset?
It's a very big problem, Nick. So a lot of young people today come to college, and then when they get to college, they're reinforced in the idea that truth is merely subjective. Your truth depends on how you feel. My truth depends on how I feel. But of course, the truth isn't subjective or relative in that way at all. Washington either did or didn't cross the Delaware. the sun either rises in the east or it doesn't rise in the east. It sets in the west or it doesn't set in the west. No, there's not your truth and my truth. There's the truth. And the truth might be hard to understand. It might be hard to get at. We might have reasonable disagreements about what the truth is, but we have to agree that there's a truth there to be sought. And then let's do our best, marshaling the best evidence on the competing sides, the best arguments on all sides of the question, to see if we can get to the truth. The trouble, Nick, when a student comes to believe that he has his truth and the other guy may have his truth and I might have my truth, but there's no such thing as the truth, that student will regard himself as immunized against critique or challenge or criticism. If you have your truth, there's nothing I can say. If your truth is just how you feel, there's nothing I can say about how you feel. You have now cut yourself off from your only chance of ever learning anything, and that is by being challenged, by having your views examined, by needing to defend your views with rational arguments, simply than saying, well, this is how I feel, and there's the end of the discussion.
We're talking with our author of the week, Robert George, the book Seeking Truth and Speaking Truth, Law and Morality in Our Cultural Moment. Yeah, I grew up in an era where it seemed as if it was around the beginning of the participation ribbon era. And I remember the conventional wisdom was, well, just wait until those young people get into the real world. They'll have a real rude awakening. And I think a lot of us felt as if that would be the outcome. However, it seems to me as if what has occurred is that many of these individuals have now gotten into positions of influence and power to where they are crafting the, quote, real world. And so instead of that correcting itself, it seems to be spreading like a cancer because we have these individuals with this sort of participation trophy, which I think is in line with you're always right. You're always special. You're always a winner. There is a disconnect from that truth and that reality. And we've gone from those being just kids in school, and we do still, I think, reference, well, young people and students. But I fear even maybe on the Supreme Court we have one or two of these people, and certainly in academia. Is that a fair assessment?
Brother Nick, I have to tell you, you're a man after my own heart. I think you are right on the mark there. Bad ideas that began in universities, a lot of people thought, well, we'll be able to get over this because students are going to go out into the real world and they'll face the challenges of the real world, and the real world can be very unforgiving, and they'll wake them up and they'll abandon these bad ideas. But of course, as you say, I'm just repeating what you said now, that isn't what happened. What actually happened is these bad ideas were exported by students who'd been through universities, from the universities into the workplace, into the corporate world, into the law firm world, indeed even into the world of medicine, which one would have thought would be pretty much immune from ideological corruption. But we've found ideological corruption really across the spectrum of disciplines and fields out there in the real world now. It began in the universities, but it didn't stay in the universities. And there's a lesson in that. What begins in the intellectual culture doesn't stay in the intellectual culture. It spreads from there.
Why do you think, well, let me lay this out. It seems to me as if people who have the truth on their side, who are those that seek the actual truth, take the intellectual approach, oftentimes are much less comfortable expressing that to someone who has an opposing viewpoint. And the people who really aren't based in truth, but instead are based on emotion, have no trouble whatsoever. There's like not this comfort zone that bothers them. They will scream and yell at people. They will get in anyone's face. And it just seems upside down. It seems as if they should be the insecure because they don't have facts on their side, but the people who have the facts on their side should be those that are less timid. But it just oftentimes seems as if it doesn't play out that way.
Well, if we are to be determined truth seekers, as we all should be, that does mean we're going to have to be cognizant of our own fallibility. We will never be good truth seekers if we think we're infallible, if we think we already know it all, if we think we have nothing to learn from people who disagree with us. To be a genuine truth seeker means you have to have a kind of intellectual humility. That's a real virtue. And if you have that, then you're not going to be comfortable just shoving your views down other people's throats or getting in people's faces or shouting at them. You recognize I could be wrong about this, and so I want to lay my argument out, but I also want to listen to the other guy's argument. And maybe that has something to do with the situation that you just described. Or the alternative and less charitable interpretation would be it's simply cowardice. That people who are decent people, who don't want to shout in other people's faces, people who are, serious about getting at the truth of things, are just too afraid of the bullies to stand up to them. And if it's that, then it's a virtue problem. And we're going to have to overcome that fear of speaking the truth as best we understand the truth, knowing we can be wrong, but doing our best to speak the truth courageously, even when other people aren't going to like it.
Our author of the week is Robert George, the book Seeking Truth and Speaking Truth, Law and Morality in Our Cultural Moment. It, to me, seems that in those formative years, as even, you hear that it's so easy for young people to learn a new language or learn multiple languages, but after your brain gets past a certain point, it becomes much, much more difficult. And I think that we do a great disservice to young people when we coddle this sort of, this perspective of my own truth and feeling, to where when they become adults, it's not as easy to overcome. And so how is it that you recommend people who are truth seekers and have conversations with people who were not raised that way, whose brains have been wired in the way of emotion? Is it possible to even have meaningful conversations? Because it's two completely different languages. And if it is possible, what is that approach?
Well, it does, Nick, take two to tango. To have a serious conversation, you need two serious conversation partners. If one person is serious about having a conversation and the other guy just wants to give you a lecture, you're not going to be able to have a conversation. So I'm sorry about that. I wish it were otherwise. But sometimes it is possible to make a little progress, even with someone who seems intransigent and dogmatic and ideological and unwilling to listen. And that is just by asking questions. Why do you believe that? What's your basis for that belief? What's the evidence you have? Have you considered this counter argument? What would you say to somebody who raised this point or that point against the view that you're now defending? How do you account for the fact that there are very intelligent people who take a different view than yours? Do you just think they're ignoramuses? Do you just think they're bigots? Do you just think they're idiots? I think that sometimes will help people to wake up to the fact that they too might be wrong. They too are fallible. And all of us, Nick, are fallible not only about the minor, trivial, superficial things of life or the things we don't care that much about. We'd all acknowledge our fallibility on those points. But we're also fallible, and we have to admit it to ourselves, on the big important questions. The things we really care about, the questions of human nature, the human good, human dignity, human rights, human destiny. And that intellectual humility that comes with a recognition of our fallibility should help us in our conversations with other people. It should help us to have genuinely civil dialogue, even with people who deeply disagree with us on questions that really matter to us.
One final, I guess it's a question of sorts. I've had this thought, and perhaps it's just hope, but whether or not you think there is any validity in this. And I've noticed over the last couple of years or so, there's been a great popularity with what I would call thinkers, going to universities, the Charlie Kirks, the Ben Shapiros, and welcoming questions from people on the left and countering, oftentimes, as you said, their assertions with questions. And I have found that even in high school, that people are following these videos. Young people seem to find them very, very engaging. And my hope is that it's because, as oftentimes things cycle, this is something new, the idea of thinking about things and having to explain yourself. And so because it's new and shiny, to younger people, high school, college age. They find themselves gravitating towards it because I don't know if you've seen these videos, but there'll be hundreds of kids standing around watching this stuff as if they're watching some sort of sport and they're engaged in it. And my hope is that just even from an observational standpoint, maybe there is hope that these younger generations are sort of cycling themselves out of what has become the norm because it's the norm, and instead are finding themselves engaged and interested in the intellectual approach to things. Is that just wishful thinking, or do you think there may be something to that?
No, it's not wishful thinking. I'm now going to say something you're probably not going to hear a lot of professors say. I commend Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and others who go to university campuses knowing that the dominant opinion is going to be overwhelmingly against them, but who invite the students into public civil dialogues, who invite the students, especially the students who disagree with them, to challenge them, to raise questions, to criticize their points of view, and get a genuine conversation going. That should be what life is like every day. That should be the norm in universities. And it's kind of a shame that it seems to be the case that somebody has to come in from the outside to get that kind of action going at a university. So I think that's great when people do that. Now, I just wish people on the left side of the political spectrum would learn from people like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro that this is a good thing to do and do it themselves. They should offer themselves in conservative forums and say, let me come in and have a civil dialogue with you, and let me give you an opportunity to challenge me and question me on any point that you want to ask. I think Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro are really setting a good example for everybody here.
Back to the days of F. Buckley Jr. and Gore Vidal.
That's exactly right. William F. Buckley was the master of this.
Oh boy, was he ever. Our author of the week, again, Robert George, thank you so much for being with us. Author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, where you can pick up Seeking Truth and Speaking Truth, Law and Morality in Our Cultural Movement. For Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.
This is Springfield's Talk 104.1.
And indeed, for those home loans, you want great ones, you want the character team. They're great when it comes to just advising you, asking questions. There are some groups, companies out there, and they don't want to hassle with you unless they know you are going to go through the process because, you take up their time. Time is money, but that's not how the characters work. They are there with their team for informational purposes when you need them, whether that is out with us at Scramblers when they're able to join us on certain Fridays, or just available through the phone, through texting, email, stopping by their offices, whatever it might be. And then, getting that process started is something that is easier with them. And when you get pre-approved, you have that pre-approval piece of paper that says, oh yeah, they're good for this, so that when you do find the home you want and you are able to make an offer and show the seller, look, I'm good for it. I'm not just speculating that I'll get approved. Here I am. That's good for 120 days. That is a great deal of time. So my recommendation is that don't wait until you find a home. Don't think, well, if I start looking, I don't find one, then I'm going to have to reapply. 120 days. You got a lot of room in there. I want a great homeloan.com for all your home loan needs, because you do.
Springfield Stock 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today it'll be sunny and hot with a high near 92. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 72. For your Friday, once again sunny and hot with a high near 92. And looking ahead to Saturday, we'll see a 60% chance of showers throughout the day with a high near 88.
There is let's see. Oh, Hugh Hewitt has a piece that I just full disclosure here, I haven't read through it because I just came across it, and it says, when the conspiracy theory just isn't there, cut your losses and move on. It's about Jeffrey Epstein. And, I think that a lot of stuff gets conflated here. There is the Epstein death, and then there are the crimes. These are two totally separate things. You can believe that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. You can believe that. But still recognize that there were a lot of people paying to rape underage girls on his island. I mean, that was the whole business. And as I noted before, this approach for whatever reason that exists, of, oh, well, that's, that's old news. That, I mean, Epstein, he's been talked to death and he's dead, and what difference does it make? And everyone's going to be different on this, but for me, this is what's crazy. It's about all the people that raped the girls. And that was the whole enterprise. Rich men, and apparently some women, that paid money to go to this island where you had underage girls that were trapped, and they would be forced to have sex with these people. This is what we call rape. At best, statutory rape, but I would argue, given that these were girls that were trapped there and felt that they had absolutely no other choice whatsoever, that it would qualify as full-blown rape. When there was, some of you may remember Heidi Fleiss. Heidi Fleiss was, this may have been in the 90s. I think it was in the 90s. And she turned out to be this gal operating out of New York, I believe. And she had been running this very high-dollar operation with very high-quality women that were acting as prostitutes. And because it was kind of like an Epstein thing, except these were fully adult women who were voluntary. But what was similar is there were a lot of well-known people in her book, her little black book. And there was a great deal of controversy over because she got caught. They took her down. I guess I don't even remember if she went to prison. I don't remember how it all played out. But I remember all of the anticipation as to whether or not the book was going to get, her little book was going to get released and reveal all of the people that were purchasing prostitutes. And to what level they would be held accountable and so forth. And so there was the reason that there was so much focus on this is because it was understood that if you have this individual and she is running a high-profile, successful, very lucrative prostitution ring, that means there are lots of, quote, Johns purchasing the product. You can't really have one without the other. You can't be a successful drug dealer unless you have purchasers illegally purchasing the drugs. And to me, it's just incredible. And, to have people, and like I said, I haven't read fully through, in fairness to this Hugh Hewitt. Well, it's very short. So let's read it. Let's read it together, shall we? Confirmation bias is the tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs or theories. Facts and theories that conflict with dearly held beliefs are dismissed as false, erroneous, or incomplete, and sometimes even as proof positive of the original bias. This isn't new or novel. If there's a human alive who isn't subject to the mighty pull of confirmation bias, I haven't met him or her. My own vulnerability is that I love seeing conspiracies debunked, and rarely are they as thoroughly shattered as the idea that Jeffrey Epstein, a monster for sure, and one certain to have been convicted of many heinous crimes in the most humiliating of fashions, kept a list of clients for whom he procured minors for intimate and criminal acts. Now the gavel has come down, and Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel have made the finding official. There is no list. Further, Epstein wasn't murdered. He killed himself. After a thorough investigation, FBI investigators concluded that Epstein committed suicide in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City on August 10, 2019. The conclusion is consistent with previous findings, the July 7th memo from the Department of Justice and the FBI states. That's it. There is no list. He took his own life. Period. End of real story. There are almost certainly many relief participants in Epstein's depravities who are working with a lighter step this week than last, but it turns out the creep wasn't so stupid as to make a list and leave it for investigators to find down the road. That Epstein killed himself is also so much easier to believe than the theories adduced for his alleged murder by powerful, even shadowy figures who could not afford the list to come to light. It's actually much easier to understand the overwhelming guilt and disgrace driving Epstein to take his own life. I don't know that I agree with that assessment, but nonetheless, Epstein didn't seem the sort to me that would feel so guilty about what he did that he had to take his life. But suicide counselors are often heard to tell the unstable that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and they need to attack the problem, not end the pain. That excellent advice would have very little impact, however, or so thought a villain as Epstein. There was nothing but endless humiliation ahead of him. Suicide is never moral, but in very rare cases like Epstein's, it does make sense, whereas in many cases it doesn't and shocks. Epstein taking his own life was never shocking to me or to most people, but it was a stumbling block to some into the rabbit hole they dove. While the DOJ FBI final findings in the small culture of the Epstein obsessed and their continued search for a new smoking gun. Will it? Of course not. Expecting a conspiracy-addicted and addled individual to suddenly emerge from the caverns of the web with a public declaration or even a private recognition that they have wasted all that time and effort on a made-up scenario is a lot to ask. Even extremely well-adjusted folks have difficulty cutting loose what are known as sunk costs. Sunk costs are investments of time or money, expenses of real or imagined value that have already been incurred and cannot be recovered regardless of future decisions. Sunk costs ought to be irrelevant to future decision-making because they are unchangeable, as in sunk, but ought and are live in different universes. An investigator writing a stock down until bankruptcy or an investor rather, writing a stock down into bankruptcy is made formal is one obvious example of an individual trapped by their own hopes and dreams for the original investment. So too is pining away for an old flame who has most definitely moved on. The list of examples of sunk cost is as long as the number of human beings, but rare is the opportunity to make a clean break with an unhealthy obsession. The findings about Epstein, that there are no findings, ought to be liberating for many. Time to move on. There really is nothing to see here. Spread the word if you know anyone afflicted with the malady. It is okay to walk away from the conspiracy. That's Hugh Hewitt. Now, the problem I have with this, everyone needs to stop thinking about it and move forward, is, again, conflating all of these things together. What best I understand cannot be denied. And the reason that Epstein went to prison, and I know this may sound redundant, but apparently some people, including very intelligent and much more successful people than me, have a difficult time, I guess, understand, or maybe they disagree with me, but Epstein went to prison because he was selling these underage girls to people. According to Pam Bondi, there was well over 250 victims. That suggests to me there were a lot of men, and again, some women. All at what? We're supposed to believe that those people don't exist? That has nothing to do with whether or not Epstein killed himself. Frankly, that also has nothing to do with whether or not Epstein had an official list. Now, by the way, I don't know that anyone necessarily, when we talk about list, this implication in the way that, to me, it seems Hugh Hewitt is presenting it, is that when we were talking about a list, we were all collectively believing that Epstein had a list, and it was titled "People That I, Sold Underage Girls to Rape," and then listed them in alphabetical order. Like there was an official list, here are the ones. I don't know that many people believe that that sort of list existed as much as, just a list of names with phone numbers of people that he constantly contacted, or some sort of, phone log listing or something. And there may have been people who thought he kept a little ledger of an official listing of people that are rapists. To me, the idea that the only way, like there's only one way that people who pay to rape children can be held accountable, that they can be tracked down, that there can be any sort of investigation, is if the person who was selling them had a list that had them listed as child rapist. That apparently is what we are supposed to be doing. Because Epstein did not have an official list, that means there's nothing we can do. Golly gee whiz. In that world, it seems like it's pretty easy to get away with rape. Because unless someone has your name on a list listing you as an official rapist, there's nothing the government can do. Case closed. We just don't have anything. This is what we're supposed to believe. I'm fine. This is me personally. Walking away from, frankly, I never felt, even if Epstein was murdered, like we were ever going to find that out. Or, that was never to me something that, and I think most people did not believe that, oh, we're going to eventually get to the bottom of it, and then the person who was responsible for it was going to be, held accountable for it. I don't think that's on anybody's list of expectations. I'm also fine acknowledging that he did not have affixed to his refrigerator a list that said rapists. And then they were all nicely alphabetically put in order. But that does not mean that these people should get away with it. And I refuse to accept this idea because all of these people who paid to rape underage girls did not have their name on a list as rapists, that means that I guess they get away with it, nothing we can do. Really? A government that had no problem spending Lord knows how much in resources tracking down thousands of Americans who happened to be near the Capitol on January 6th can't find or track down these, when, by the way, there are living victims. There are victims that are alive. This is the biggest, it's the primary problem I have with all of this. And it's a really weird, to me, position to take in which, somebody, again, intellectual guy, very smart, moral individual, Hugh Hewitt, that fully acknowledges in his piece that, yeah, there are a lot of rapists that are walking around much happier today because they don't have to worry about being caught, but we should all move on. That's just the way it is. I don't, as a moral person who cares about child sex victims, I just don't accept that. And what a message, particularly at a time when we know that because of the previous administration's policies, there are countless underage girls that right now are living the same life that those girls lived on Epstein Island, sold into sex slavery in this country. And what message they get? I guess if their rapist isn't on an official list for someone, they can't expect any justice. Because that apparently is the position that we're all taking when it comes to this. Well, not you and I, because I guess we're conspiracy theorists that just refuse to let go. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. If it's been a long time since you've had someone take a look at your roof, now is the time to do it, especially with all of the severe storms that we've had roll through the Ozarks over the last couple of months. And I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. The Pyramid team, they do residential, commercial, and even metal roofing services. They offer a free roof inspection, so they take tons of photos and videos of everything from your decking to your gutters to around your vents, and then they come up with the best plan for you and your home. Sometimes that doesn't mean a whole new roof. Maybe it means just a simple roof repair. Either way, the Pyramid Roofing Company team, they will get you all taken care of for all of your roofing needs. So if it is time to have that free roof inspection, give Josh and his team a call today. You can find all their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
You know, one other thing that and I don't know if this will ever get answered. I'd like to know one day, and perhaps post-Trump presidency, why is it that Trump, at this point, has seemed to say, hey, this thing is over and let's move on. Now, of course, you have some people that are deranged, and they're like, because he's implicated, which, of course, defies everything that makes sense. And we've gone over that. Everything from the fact that Trump humiliated Epstein by kicking him out of Mar-a-Lago, a complete social humiliation on full display. Like, why would he do that? And it was all because he was inappropriate towards female staffers at Mar-a-Lago. Sort of seems like if Epstein had something on Trump, probably wouldn't have done that. But one of the biggest, of course, conflicts with reality is the fact that these files, all of this information that exists or doesn't exist, was held by the Biden administration. Why would they hide this? Why would they protect Trump? That doesn't make sense either. Well, because if they released his name, they'd have to release everyone else's. That's not how corrupt people work. Again, none of that. That's mental disability thinking, all of that there. Okay. But why? Now, if you take out the personalities and you look at what is the most likely situation? What is the most likely scenario? I think the most likely scenario, if you did have the FBI sitting on this stuff and the Department of Justice sitting on this stuff, not going after any of the perpetrators for all this time. This means one of two things. Either they were protecting the people, or they were protecting them so that they could hold it over them. But either which way, that would be an implication of people within the FBI as well. So if you all of a sudden have somebody come in that's a new FBI director that says, we're going to figure this stuff out, you're not going to leave your fingerprint. You're going to start destroying this stuff. That's just human nature. And to me, what makes sense, potentially, knowing how Trump is, that they get in there and they find that anything that would allow them to start going after the people who are using the services of Epstein have been gone and they're destroyed. And Trump is the sort of person that recognizes when you cut your losses, because he doesn't have time to sit around. This is part of why he's successful. You're okay, we're done with that. There's nothing more we can do. We can move on. And I think, frankly, he has a lack of patience for people that want to dwell on things that he sees as something that you cannot win. And I think that potentially, that seems to me the most likely scenario, that because of just everything and the people that would be implicated and involved, the evidence that was there once upon a time, potentially, that could connect and identify these people. It's just one big giant mess, and Trump sees it as, let's not waste time on it. We have bigger things to do at this time. That is the most likely scenario.